Hello everyone, and good morning because it's morning and I'm tired and I'm sure it can tell because my eyes don't want to stay open. Hi. This is gonna be a kind of weirdish video. It's not usual for my content because this isn't a video game. This is like a book talk video. Hello, book talk. I kept trying to make videos for this one day in particular that this is getting posted on. And I hate all of them, because I'm like, I just need one video. Just one. I didn't want to start a whole new game series with just this day. So I'm like, I just need one video. I've tried so many different things and I don't like any of them. And I probably won't like this one either, but I literally have to post this tomorrow, so we're just doing it. Hi, welcome. We're gonna talk about my favorite horror and or spooky books, because not all of these are horror. But some of them are pretty spooky and like kind of thrilling and mystical, you know, sometimes supernatural. So I'll get into the digital ones first, because they're what I have right now. So I'm actually currently reading Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I freaking love it, okay? I have 12 hours and 30 minutes left. And this book, I don't know, how long is it? I don't know. I want to say it's like 15 hours long, but so I've only read like 3-ish hours, maybe 4 tops. So I was reading it yesterday as I was cleaning, but like it's so good. So it's about, as far as I know, and I'm not very good with summaries, but as far as I know, it's about these 4 really prolific horror authors that get invited to stay in this potentially haunted house. And I say potentially because from what I understand it, there are actually ghosts. There's supernatural stuff that's probably gonna happen. No one's died yet, but I'm sure there's going to be deaths. Like, I've heard so many things about this book, and all of those made me kind of go like, eh, you know, but like, reading it, I'm like, wow, this is actually like, nothing even terrifying is happening yet, but just the characters themselves and the way that things are described, the way that the house is described, like, it's so cool. It's written very well and it's super captivating. Like, I want to keep reading it, but I have to do things, so I'm not right now. But like, it's funny in some cases. It's really interesting. I fucking love this book. So yeah, Kill Creek by Scott Thomas? Yes, Scott Thomas. Reading that one right now, so just 3 hours in and I already recommend it. Clown in a Cornfield 1 and 2, although mostly 1. Clown in a Cornfield 1 I thought was way better than Clown in a Cornfield 2. This one is a slasher, and the first one is about this girl who moves, is it to Kansas? Somewhere where there's a lot of corn. And, like, she makes friends with this dude that really likes to be in the spotlight, I guess. He makes a lot of, like, YouTube videos, pranking people and stuff. And then they all go to this party in a barn in a cornfield, and all of a sudden, everyone starts dying, right? There's clowns coming out of the cornfield, and they're killing all of the teenagers. And there's reasons why. And some people might say the reasons are dumb, but I'm like, yeah, it's like an over-exaggeration of this particular thing, but it was really fun to read, and like, whoa, for some of the deaths. It gets really brutal. It's definitely gory, so if you don't like that, don't read it. But like, it's pretty fast-paced also, which I like, so it's not one of those like horror books where it has like a really amazing start and then it lulls for a long time and then at the very end it picks up again. Like, it's action-packed all the way through, so it's really good. Clown in a Cornfield 2, I won't spoil the plot for that one. I won't summarize it because you'd have to have read the first book. But essentially, clowns come back. I'll just say that much. Clowns come back for the survivors of the first book, and I didn't like it as much. I didn't like the message that they're trying to give as much. I didn't like the pacing nearly as much. It felt kind of like it was missing something, and I don't know quite what that thing was, but first book, way better than the second one, but I still recommend the second one. It was still pretty fun and good. You May Now Kill the Bride by R.L. Stine, which is one of the Fear Street books. That one was actually pretty good, but I hated the ending. I will say that I absolutely hated the ending. This is one where I started reading it after watching the movie series because I didn't realize that the movie series was an actual book series. Completely different stories, completely different characters, so keep that in mind if you switch from the movie to the books. But I read like the newer Fear Street series that I don't remember when it came out, but it's the newer ones rather than the older ones that came out probably when I was a kid, like in the 90s. But like, this one is about this curse, I guess, on this Fear family. And it starts off like in the past with these two sisters, and they're always like kind of feuding, and they both end up dying. And then it's generations later, and there's two Fear sisters again, always feuding. One of them ends up dying. I won't spoil who or anything like that. There's witchcraft that's kind of involved, and there's like some lover quarrel sort of thing that happens. And it happens during weddings. That's the thing. The thing that happened in the past, the brides died. Well, not brides. The bride and her sister died at the wedding, and then there's the other death that happens at the wedding. I won't spoil that part, but like, yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting. It was kind of funny. It was a little obvious what was happening, but also not. Like, I kind of guessed it, but when it was revealed, I was like, oh, you know, like, so it was just an all-around kind of fun read. I don't think it's like a super serious horror novel because it's for teens, but like, it was still really fun. It was a really fun read. But again, I hated the ending. There's just so many like plot holes in it too, like right at the end. I'm like, these things were never tied up, and it's bothering me. But that was like my only bad thing about it. Otherwise, it was entertaining. It was really fun. I will say almost anything by Grady Hendrix. He became one of my favorite horror authors. Probably like 2 years ago is when I started reading him, and I've read the majority of his stuff except for Paperbacks from Hell, which is still on my list. But I've read We Sold Our Souls. I have read Horror Store, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. God, what is that other one called? My Best Friend's Exorcism. That was the very first one that I read. So, of all of his books, My Best Friend's Exorcism and The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires were probably my two favorites that he's written. Horror Store was good, but I feel like with the way that it ended, it absolutely needs a sequel, because it was one of those things where like a lot of horrifying kind of stuff happens, and it's also kind of funny because it's like haunted IKEA. So, and the way that the book is actually printed, like the printed version of it, so creative, so amazing. Like, I would pick up Horror Store, the physical copy, just to have the physical copy because of the way that the chapters look and everything. It looks like an IKEA pamphlet. It's really cool. But I listened to the audiobook, obviously. But yeah, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is good, but I will say that there should be a trigger warning for that one, concerning sexual assault. So, that book would have been like a 5-star rating on Goodreads for me, except that it has that part in it, which for me drops it down to a 4, because I feel like there could have been a better way to get that plot point across, rather like the after effects of what happened there. There is a better way, I think, than what happened. And so, not a fan of that part, but still a really good book. Again, I friggin' suck at summaries because I spoil everything. But it's about, I mean, it's basically what it's about. Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. There's a vampire dude that comes to town. It's pretty obvious at the very start who he is, and that he is the vampire. Like, that's not spoiling anything, really. But, like, it's about this housewife who's in this book club with all of these other housewives. And she's noticing all of the weird things with this dude, with this vampire dude, like all of these weird things. And she starts to suspect stuff, and then she discovers what he is, even though she doesn't quite understand it, because it's not a vampire in the classic sense. It's a vampire in a very non-classic sense. So for me, I was very disappointed with the reveal of what he was because it was not classic vampire, and I love classic vampire. So I think he's not actually a vampire. It was kind of like how the vampires in Twilight are really more like fairies than they are vampires, you know? It kind of feels like that. Like this is a thing that's calling itself a vampire because it has the similar thing of like drinking blood to sustain itself. But in every other way, it is nothing like a vampire. And so for me, I'm like, that's not a fucking vampire. That is something else entirely, and it's calling itself a vampire. So that was my biggest disappointment with that book. What he is, because even though he calls himself a vampire, he's not a fucking vampire. He's not. And I love vampires, so I was hyped. And then when I saw it, I was not hyped. I was like, this killed it a little for me. But it's still really fun. It's really good. I love the way that it ends. I absolutely love the ending. It was really good. And then My Best Friend's Exorcism. I read that so long ago now that I barely remember it, but I do remember it being really, like, funny. It's definitely, like, a callback to the 80s, because I think it takes place in the 80s, so, like, it feels like an 80s horror movie when you're reading it, and I don't know, it was just really good. It was really fun. It's disgusting. Grady Hendrix is great at writing disgusting things. Like, in We Sold Our Souls, that one is about this, like, ex-rock star woman who, kind of sort of wants to get revenge on her old bandmates. One in particular, because they maybe sold their souls to the devil to get famous, but some of them kind of maybe got kicked out of that contract in a certain way, and so, like, they've been in their own actual hell on earth, whereas the other guys are thriving. So this one woman who used to be in the band is like, fuck everything, I'm gonna go kick some shit up. And she does that, but there's this one part where she's in a car with this dude, and there's all these really crazy, like, frantic people that are clawing at them, because they want to get them for a reason. I won't spoil what, but, like, they claw this dude's face apart, and he dies. Like, they just tear his face apart through the car window, and he fucking dies. And it's gross. Like, it was disgusting to read. So if you're into, like good story, mostly well-written female characters, and pretty interesting and weird kind of plot situations, but also disgusting stuff, then go for Grady Hendrix books, because they are really good. But I did not like the Final Girls Club. I didn't like that one, which was sad, because I really wanted to, but I liked what he did with some of them, but I also didn't really like him. Anyways, if you're looking for something kind of gothic, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia is really, really good. I really enjoyed that one. That one also gets a little gross at some point, but, like, is pretty good. Is really good. It's a really good book. It's about this girl who gets, like, this kind of disturbing message from her cousin, and her parents send her to go check up on the cousin, and so she ends up staying there for a while. It's very gothic, you know. It's got the trope of the woman going to this place that she's unfamiliar with, and there's secrets in the house, and the house is kind of decaying, and, like, all this kind of stuff. I don't know, man. It was really, really well written, and it was very awesome. Sorry that I'm looking down. I'm looking to see what else I have on here that I liked. The answer was nothing. There was nothing else on my Audible list that I have read and liked. I have tons that I still need to read, but I haven't read them yet, so I can't recommend them. But we're gonna get into physical copies of things that I have. So, again, if you're kind of looking for, like, the gothic horror kind of thing, where it's not quite horror, but, like, it's definitely got darker tones, darker themes, it's a little more thrilling. Portrait of Dorian Gray. Picture of Dorian Gray, sorry. Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Really good. Movie was also really good, the newer one. I can't friggin' remember what year it came out in, but that newer one, I thought it did this pretty well. But I remember really, really liking this book. I have, like, a bunch of dog ears in here. Dog-eared pages, because that's how I roll. I don't know if you can see them. Oh, you can kind of see them. All my little dog ears. But yeah, like, I had to read this for school, but it was really good. I remember it being like very thrilling. Lots of stuff happened. Things that did happen, I was like, no, what? Like it was good. I like when books can elicit an actual genuine reaction out of me, rather than me just being like, oh yeah, that's the thing that happened. You know what I mean? So there's that one. Again, not necessarily horror, but definitely plays with like the Gothic tropes and that kind of thing. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So I think we all kind of know what Jane Eyre is about for the most part, but it's got the classic, you know, woman goes to a decaying house that has many secrets in it, and particularly the man of the house has many secrets. So it has like that whole thing. We all know about the woman in the attic. All that fun stuff. So like very goth, very cool. I do have Crimson Peak the novel on my Audible, which I really want to listen to because I freaking love Crimson Peak. Highly, highly recommend Crimson Peak the movie. From what it sounds like from the reviews, the book is just as good, if not better, because it adds a little more. But I haven't read it yet, so I can't recommend it, the book, but I can recommend the movie. Absolutely. If you like Gothic horror, you will love Crimson Peak. It's so good. Otherwise, Frankenstein. Frankenstein's a classic. We all know Frankenstein. I feel like I don't have to explain it. This is my favorite copy, though. I have multiple copies of this book. Oh. Excuse you. I have multiple copies, but this one is, like, the prettiest one. It's got all the hearts and stuff. And, it actually has a little bookmark put in here, too. One of those little cloth ribbon ones. I haven't read this one yet. Oh, I have leaves back here! Look at that! I forgot I was using this to dry some leaves. Awesome. But yeah, I haven't actually cracked this version open yet, but my other version that I have has many notes and dog ears. Just like this one. Because, like, I read these for school. But these were ones that I, like, really, really enjoyed, you know? Dracula. Obviously, if we're doing vampires, you gotta do Dracula. Dracula is awesome. Like, it's written in a way that is kind of hard to read, I think, sometimes. It kind of goes... It's like a slow burn, for me, at least, I thought. It felt very slow burn-esque, but, like, I just remember reading this book and being so enthralled with it, and, like, I love it. And also the mini-series that's on Netflix, the Dracula mini-series, so freaking good. Highly recommend that one too if you want to watch a Dracula thing that isn't, like, the Dracula with Winona Ryder in it. Oh my god, what? I have a torn page? No! That makes me sad. I wonder when that happened. Anyways, Mr. Begone by Clive Barker. You're following the tale of a demon in this one. And he talks straight to you. And, like, that was the thing that got me, is that this character breaks the fourth wall and he's speaking directly to you, the reader, as he's telling his story. And, like, there's this one part I remember where he's like, ah, yes, I've lulled you into, like, a sense of security and whatever, but what you don't know is that I'm, like, breathing down your neck. Right now, you can feel my breath on the back of your neck. You know, and if you turn around, I'll be right there, sort of a thing. And I just remember going, like... I don't feel anything, but, like, oh, are you really behind? Are you, like, legit real? Like, and I read this in high school, so, like, it was, like, really, really good. I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember that it is the tale of a demon, and he's, like... Lots of stuff happens in it. I remember some of the stuff that's, like, really, like, gruesome happens in it. Like, this one woman kind of gets melted alive, by being, like... accidentally, like, I think it's just her head. I think it's just her head. And, like, the demon in this, I can't remember his name right now. But he really likes this, like, human girl. And somehow her head gets dunked into, like, a steaming vat of something. And then when she gets lifted back up, her skin is, like, melting off her face and stuff. So it's really brutal in some cases, but I think it's kind of... God, it's so hard to talk about it because I don't quite remember it, but it's just this demon, this little devil demon dude that doesn't quite fit into, like, the devil realm and stuff, and he's trying to kind of figure himself out, and so he ends up going, like, upstairs to the human world, and tries to fit in there and discovers that humans are just as bad as demons are and all that stuff. So then he's like, I'm just gonna be the best fucking demon there ever was. That's what I remember from it. And so, like, it was just really weird and interesting and gross. Another one that I read in high school, because it came out when I was in high school, Sweeney Todd, or A String of Pearls, which is the original book. The original book is called String of Pearls, and like this book was actually really good and very, very thrilling. This one was super thrilling. It's nothing at all like the musical, just saying, okay? Nothing at all like the musical. But this is what the musical was based off of, I think. And Toby's in it, Sweeney Todd is in it, Mrs. Lovett is in it. Like, they have a lot of the same characters, but they're very different. Like, Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett fucking hate each other. Toby is not an orphan from what I can remember, but he's Sweeney Todd's apprentice. And he's, like, super smart. He's, like, way super smart. He's watching Sweeney like a hawk, because he's like, I know you're up to, like, some shenanigans, bro. And, like, I don't know, Joanna's in there too, but it's a little different. The whole plot revolves around a string of pearls that I think is supposed to get to Joanna, but Sweeney Todd ends up getting them somehow or something like that. But it's got like the same kind of he kills people, Mrs. Lovett makes them into pies. Like, it's got those same like main beats, I guess, as the musical, but it is not at all the same story, not at all the same type of characters, you know? Sweeney Todd is absolutely a big fucking asshole in this one, and he's not afraid to show it. Like, whereas in the musical, he's kind of like this quiet, reserved, respectful dude, you know, for the most part. In this, he's absolutely not. He's a big fucking asshole. And he just kills whoever the fuck he wants. It doesn't matter. He kills them, and he takes their shit. That's what he does. And there's no, like, revenge plot or anything like that, so... Not that I can remember anyways, but yeah, it all revolves around the String of Pearls instead of Sweeney Todd's revenge. This one, The Price Guide to the Occult. I bought this because, I mean, the title, I love occult things, but also this book is, like, beautiful, and the pages are red. So cool. So, this one, God, it was, I love this book. I love how it looks. Like, is it not just gorgeous? It's so friggin' pretty. I love it. This is one of my favorite books that I own. I'm gonna be honest, I don't quite remember the plot. Although I will read it to you. All Nora Blackburn wants is to live an unremarkable teenage life on the sweet little touristy island she calls home. But then a mysterious book comes out. The island's flora and fauna raise their hackles, and strangers and acquaintances alike begin sprouting ominous fern tattoos. A storm is coming. It's coming for Nor. Dun dun dun! There's a lot of stuff that happens in here. There's definitely witchcraft in here. There's like a romance plot in here, but it's also like not the main thing, you know? Like, it's cute, but it's not the main point of it. And like at the end, I think it ends up not working out for one reason or another. So it's like, it's totally fine. It's just like something that kind of distracts her for a second and then reels it back in. But like, I don't remember the plot of it super well because I've only read it once, like a few years ago, but I remember it being really awesome and really fun. Two more to go. So this one I don't have the original cover for it anymore, even though it's really cool. But this is the Monstromologist by Rick Yancey. You can see it there. It has a really cool inside cover. It's got some cool little art on the inside too, every now and then. Like that. Like, it's all anatomical kind of stuff. Little scissors. Whoops. Boop. Little scissor dudes. Just stuff like that. Like, it's got it all over. It's really, really good. This is actually a book series, and I have not read the entire series. I've only read The Monstromologist. It's pretty hefty for being like a teen kind of book. This book is also disgusting, but really fun. It's, like in the 1800s, early 1800s, I want to say, maybe mid 1800s. I can't quite remember the date, actually. 1864? 18 something. Yeah, I don't quite remember exactly when it takes place, but, essentially, we are reading through Will Henry and his journals. Will Henry is a kid when he's telling the story, and he sort of gets adopted by this monstromologist, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's a dude that studies monsters. And so, like, there's a lot of gross dissections and stuff that happen, but also getting involved with the monsters is a big thing in this book. So in this one in particular, they're looking at the Anthropophagi, which are creatures that look kind of like humans, but minus their heads, and then their eyes are on their chest and their stomachs are their mouths. And they eat humans, or meat, just anything, right? Really freaking terrifying monsters, actually. So, definitely a creature book, a creature horror. Super scary. There's a lot of really disgusting imagery in this one. Like, one that I remember so vividly was this captain dude trying, like, someone takes off his shoe and his skin sloughs off with it, and it's disgusting. There is also another part where the Anthropophagi, like stabs his hand through someone else on the ship and, like, has a still beating heart in his hand and everything. It's like, fucking terrifying. Let me read you this paragraph, though, if you want to know just how gritty and gross it gets. This might be kind of spoilery, but it's also not, because this thing that happens is not really super important to the plot, except to show that they are heading in the right direction. The Reverend, whose body remained more or less intact, had captured our attention as the locus of the slaughter, but all around it, like shards thrown from a grisly centrifuge, upon the walls and floorboards and even the ceiling above our heads, were fragments and scraps of human flesh, unrecognizable effluvia cemented by blood to nearly every surface. Tufts of hair, bits of entrails, splinters of bones, shavings of muscle. In some places, the walls were so saturated they literally wept with his blood. It was as if the child had been shoved into a grinder and then spewed out in every direction. Lying but a few inches from the doctor's right shoe was a severed foot of the boy, the only recognizable portion left extant by the marauding Anthropophagi. Yeah. That was a kid that died. Lots of people, actually an entire family got slaughtered by the Anthropophagi in that, from what I can remember. But that's kind of like what you can look forward to in the Monstromologist. And this one starts off like really slow, but once it picks up, it picks up. It gets really, really good. But yeah, great monster book. Really gross though. It's really gross. And I also have Curse of the Wendigo, but I haven't read that one yet, and I don't want to read it until I reread The Monstromologist, but I'm having trouble with reading right now, which is why I'm doing audiobooks, because I have trouble with physically reading. The last one is one that got, like, crazy popular, and I have not finished the TV show because, although season 2 was good, but I'm not that interested in finishing the TV show, but I first read this as an art copy. I think this is my art copy, actually. When I was working at a bookstore, I picked up the art copy of You by Caroline Kepnes. This is my advanced reader's edition. My art copy that I still have that you can't sell. And I just remember, like, seeing the cover in the break room and going like, ooh, what is that? What's that about? And then I read the back and I was like, this sounds creepy and terrifying. So by this point, I feel like we all know about Joe and how he's like a really creepy, lovesick dude who also potentially murders anyone that gets in the way of him and his romance that he's playing out in his head. The books are so much better than the TV show. I will say that, because you're much more in Joe's head. He says cunt a lot more. He cusses a lot more. He has more disgusting fantasies in here than he does in the show. Like, it's definitely better than the show, but in a worse way, if that makes sense. Like, because you actually get to hear all of his very dark thoughts and everything. It's called You, though, because he's talking to her, whose name I'm blanking on right now. But the woman that he's in love with. Why am I blanking on her name? Guinevere Beck. That's her name. Her name's Beck. So yeah, he's like really super interested in Beck from the moment that he sees her, to the point where he is obsessive, and it's weird and gross. And there's 2 other books in this whole series. There's Hidden Bodies and You Love Me, and Hidden Bodies was okay, and then You Love Me I haven't actually read yet, but I have it on my shelf. And I'm pretty sure that in that one he also has a baby, like I'm pretty sure he has in season 3 of the show. But there's definitely, like, they did a pretty great book to screen adaptation, I think, where it was for the most part pretty true to the books. But they did change like one major thing that I don't know if that will end up being a thing that's changed in the 3rd book, but whatever. They made some changes that are like, I can see why they made them, and I'm not mad about those changes, you know what I mean? But this book is really cool because, and it's really creepy because in a way it kind of breaks the 4th wall, but it also doesn't, because he's not speaking to you, the reader, he's speaking to you, Guinevere Beck. But it's him addressing her, saying, you walked into the bookstore, you did this, you think that, you feel this, you know, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, it feels really creepy and really close. And then in the 2nd book, that narrative is gone. He doesn't refer to love as you. So to me, the 2nd book is a little bit less cool, just because having that like 2nd person narrative where he's talking directly to the woman of his fantasies and stuff, that was really creepy. Like, that added a layer of creepiness to it and craziness that is completely missing from the 2nd book, and I'm assuming also from the 3rd book, because I haven't read it yet, but I don't know. I still recommend the 1st book, though. The 1st book is amazing completely on its own. It really doesn't need a 2nd book, in my opinion, except for some of the plot holes, like the pee he leaves in someone's house. And yeah, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I still highly recommend the book, and books, I guess, but the 1st book is the best. 1st book is amazing. So yeah, those are gonna be my spooky reading recommendations for you, with really terrible plot summaries, because I don't know how to talk about books except by telling everyone the exact plot of them. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm just putting my computer area back together. Thank you so much for joining me as I talk randomly and wildly and incoherently about horror books that I think you should read, or scary/thrilling books. Spooky books. I'll say spooky books. Spooky books I think you should read, because they're good. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much, and Halloween season is upon us. Woo! Okay, bye.